Imagine it is 1:38 a.m. You are locked inside your apartment.
Right.
The deadbolt is thrown, the chain is secured, and you are entirely alone in the quiet dark of your living room. And then the silence is broken.
Just that sudden noise.
Yeah, exactly. Your phone screen lights up on the coffee table with the delivery notification. You lean over, totally confused, because, you haven't ordered anything.
Of course not. It's the middle of the night.
Right, so the notification includes a photo, ostensibly to prove the food was dropped off, and the photo shows your front door perfectly locked. But as your eyes adjust to the glare of the screen, your blood runs completely cold, because the picture of your locked front door, it was taken from inside your living room.
Oh, man. It's a terrifying image.
It really is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are tearing apart a genuinely chilling narrative from the Midnight Curator YouTube channel. The story is titled, I Got a Delivery, but I Didn't Order Anything. And just to be completely clear right up front, we are not doing a standard tech review today, nor is this like a true crime recap.
No, not at all. We are examining this entirely through the lens of classic suspense horror.
Yeah.
The mission today is to place you, the listener, directly into the shoes of this trapped victim.
Yeah.
We really want to dissect the profound psychological terror of feeling watched in your own home, analyzing exactly how this story exploits, our modern vulnerabilities.
Because the core paradox here, the thing that just burrows under your skin, is how much blind faith we put into physical fortresses. We buy heavy oak doors, we install steel chains, reinforced strike plates, complex smart locks.
All of it.
Yeah, we do all of this to keep the chaotic, unpredictable world outside. But what happens when the digital tools we willingly, almost thoughtlessly, invite inside turn into irrefutable evidence of our complete and utter helplessness?
It is the ultimate subversion of modern convenience, really. The narrative takes something as incredibly mundane as a push notification, a sound that has been neurologically wired in our brains to mean, a pizza's here, or a package is on the porch.
Right, a happy sound.
Exactly, a happy, satisfying sound.
Yeah.
And it transforms it into an instrument of absolute psychological dread.
I want to start by looking at the very concept of the locked door, actually, because the story spends time really establishing this ritual. It's nighttime. You go to the door, you physically engage the heavy deadbolt, you slide the steel chain into its track, you shut out the night.
It's a very deliberate sequence.
It is. The space inside is supposedly yours alone. It's a sanctuary. If you want to interact with the outside world, you do it strictly on your terms, right? You feel safe.
Yeah.
But why is that physical act of locking a door so deeply ingrained in our psyche? Why does it matter so much?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at the evolutionary psychology of the threshold. Historically, humans have spent thousands of years perfecting the boundary between in and out. The locked door represents the ultimate dividing line between the chaos of the wilderness, or, in a modern context, the unpredictability of the city streets and the sanctuary of the self. So when you turn that deadbolt and hear the heavy metallic click, you are doing way more than just securing physical property. You're actually sending a biological signal to your nervous system.
Like a signal to just stand down.
Exactly. You are telling your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, that it can power down. You are establishing a perimeter.
Okay, that makes sense.
Once that perimeter is secured, your cortisol levels drop. You don't have to be on high alert anymore. You can change into comfortable clothes, let your guard down, and exist in a state of absolute vulnerability. The physical lock is basically the anchor for your psychological baseline.
But then we introduce modern delivery apps into this ancient equation, and it feels like, we've created a massive psychological loophole for ourselves.
We absolutely have.
Because we've engineered this seemingly safe, controlled way to interact with the outside world without ever actually breaching our own physical perimeter. You can summon a hot meal, or groceries, or even medicine right to the other side of that locked door. The danger never actually crosses the threshold.
Right. It is a controlled breach. You are opening a channel to the outside world, but you dictate the terms. You dictate the time, the item, and the exact drop-off location.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's like we live in medieval castles, but instead of lowering a drawbridge, we just tap a glass screen to have a courier drop a parcel at the moat. We feel completely in control of the transaction. We're like installing a $5,000 laser grid bank vault door on the front of our house, hyper fixating on the physical wood and metal, while completely ignoring the back door we've left wide open for, I don't know, a stray cat or something.
That's a great analogy.
We focus all our anxiety on the physical space, right? While completely ignoring the invisible digital data streams flowing right through the walls.
And that false sense of control is precisely what makes the setup of this narrative so incredibly effective. I mean, in classic suspense building, you have to establish an atmosphere of absolute safety before you introduce the threat.
You have to raise the stakes.
Exactly. You have to build the fortress walls incredibly high so that the subsequent violation feels profoundly devastating. The psychological comfort of that literal click of a shutting door sets you up for the impending terror. If the door was already open or if you lived in a tent, the stakes wouldn't be nearly as high. The trauma is generated by the violation of a trusted boundary.
Which brings us to 1:38 a.m., the inciting incident of the story. You are sitting in that locked apartment, you haven't ordered a thing, your phone lights up. A notification from a delivery app you haven't used in weeks is sitting right there on the lock screen.
Just waiting for you.
Yeah. You open it, check your order history, and it's totally empty. Now think about what your brain does the exact second you see that empty order history. Your immediate instinct is to rationalize it.
Well, absolutely.
You assume it's a server error. You assume the app just misrouted a photo meant for someone else's account. Just a simple, stupid digital mistake.
Well, before we dissect the rationalization, we have to look at the specificity of the time.
Yeah.
1:38 a.m. This is a very deliberate choice in the narrative.
Because it's the middle of the night, right? It's spooky.
It's deeper than that, actually.
Huh.
1:38 a.m. is a liminal space. It is a time universally associated with extreme vulnerability, isolation, and sleep. The rest of the world is offline. And your own cognitive defenses are significantly lowered.
Oh, I see.
Your prefrontal cortex, the logical reasoning part of your brain, is sluggish at that hour. If this exact same notification happened at, say, 2 p.m. on a busy Tuesday while you're at the office, your reaction would just be annoyance.
Yeah, you'd probably just swipe it away and get back to work.
Exactly. But at 1:38 a.m. in a silent apartment, it is a profound intrusion into a vulnerable state.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. Let's look at that initial reaction. If I get a weird notification in the middle of the night that implies someone is at my door, why is my absolute first instinct to blame a server error?
Because of trust?
Right, but why do we implicitly trust the physical deadbolt so much that we completely dismiss the digital anomaly as a mere glitch? Like, my brain immediately goes, oh, some coder in Silicon Valley messed up a database routing protocol, rather than, I am in imminent physical danger. That seems like a massive flaw in our survival instincts.
It's not a flaw, actually. It's a feature. What you are experiencing there is the denial phase of suspense, which is deeply rooted in cognitive dissonance. When the human brain is faced with a terrifying, impossible anomaly, it desperately seeks a mundane explanation to avoid a massive panic response.
Because panic is exhausting.
Because panic is metabolically expensive.
Yeah.
And highly disruptive to your system. If you immediately accepted an unexpected digital notification as undeniable evidence of a severe physical threat, your mind would literally break under the constant stress of modern technology. I mean, the notifications glitch constantly.
That's true. My phone does weird stuff all the time.
Right. So rationalization acts as your brain's shock absorber. It's a survival mechanism designed to keep you functioning normally until undeniable physical proof of danger is presented. You trust the physical lock because it has tactile weight. You distrust the digital notification because you've been conditioned to know that digital things break, glitch, and misfire constantly.
It's just the brain saying, look, everything is fine. Don't flood the system with adrenaline and trigger a heart rate spike just yet. Let's just assume it's a bug.
Exactly. It's essentially a localized anesthesia for your anxiety.
But that shock absorber fails instantly once your brain actually processes the visual evidence provided by the app. Because you don't just see text, right? You open the delivery confirmation photo, and the image staring back at you entirely destroys that rationalization.
It shatters it completely.
Because the photo shows your front door, the deadbolt is clearly engaged in the image, the chain is perfectly secured, you can even see the familiar small scratch near the door handle. But the photograph is taken from the perspective of someone standing inside your living room.
Yeah.
The lock isn't broken. The physical barriers did exactly what they were designed to do. but a threat has bypassed the perimeter entirely.
This is the critical pivot of the narrative. This is where uncanny discomfort transforms into paralyzing horror. The physical security worked flawlessly, which makes the presence of the intruder logically impossible.
And when the rules of reality break, I mean, that's where true terror lives.
Precisely. In horror theory, the logically impossible is always the most deeply terrifying element because it means the fundamental laws of physics and reality that you rely on to keep you safe simply no longer apply. You cannot strategize against something that shouldn't exist.
I really want to focus on a specific detail the source material provides here, the familiar small scratch near the handle. That is such an agonizingly brilliant piece of storytelling.
Why does that specific detail stand out to you?
Because it completely obliterates the server error theory. It grounds the horror in undeniable objective reality. If it was just a picture of a generic white door, you could still lie to yourself.
Sure, you could find a way out.
Yeah, you could say, oh, this is just a stock photo the app uses when the camera fails. Or, hey, this is my neighbor's apartment downstairs. They have the exact same layout. But that scratch is a fingerprint. It proves this isn't a glitch. It proves this is your door in your apartment.
It forcefully strips away the very last remnants of your cognitive shock absorber. Your brain is cornered by the visual data. The logical syllogism is just inescapable. The photo is taken from inside your apartment, therefore the photographer is currently inside your apartment.
So what does this all mean? It is the modern hyper-digital evolution of the most famous classic horror movie line, the Paul is coming from inside the house.
Oh, classic.
We all know that scene, right? The babysitter gets the creepy call, she begs the operator to trace it, and the operator frantically tells her to get out because the killer's on the other line inside the house. But think about how much more terrifying this modern version is. A disembodied voice on a landline in 1979 leaves room for doubt.
It does. It could be a prank. It could be a crossed wire.
Exactly. But a high-resolution, time-stamped photograph delivered through a corporate app to the palm of your hand, that is undeniable proof.
And observe what that undeniable proof does to your relationship with your own physical space. 5 minutes ago, we established that your locked door was a barrier keeping the danger out. The millisecond your brain comprehends that photograph, the entire polarity of your reality reverses. The narrative violently strips away your agency. Your locked door is no longer keeping the chaos out. It is now actively trapping you inside with the chaos. You locked yourself in. Your sanctuary is now your cage.
Man, just thinking about that makes my chest tight. The claustrophobia is absolutely suffocating. Once you realize your fortress is a cage, your body's primal survival instincts are forced to take the wheel. And the narrative describes what happens next, and it is agonizing.
It really is.
Panic sets in, but you don't run. You freeze. You stand completely still in the dark. You stare down at the screen of your phone. You start doing this desperate pixel hunt.
Yes, the pixel hunt.
You trace the camera angle in the photo, mapping it from the door to a specific dark spot in your own living room. And in the photo, just at the edge of the light cast from the kitchen, you see an unnatural shadow stretching across the floorboards. So you use your thumb and forefinger to zoom in on the far edge of the wall in the photo. And there, gripping the drywall, are pale, indistinct fingers.
Terrifying.
The unseen photographer is standing inches away from you, shielded only by a corner of the hallway. You are occupying the exact same dark room, and you are so terrified that the phone slips from your hand and drops to the floor.
What you are describing is a textbook physiological reaction. In the field of trauma psychology, we discuss the fight, flight, or freeze matrix. Pop culture often heavily critiques victims in horror scenarios for freezing. Audiences yell at the screen like, why don't they just run?
Oh yeah, everyone yells at the TV.
Right, but freezing is not a failure of courage. It is a highly evolved, incredibly common survival tactic known as tonic immobility.
But wait, I have to question the victim's reaction here. I understand freezing when you hear, like, a twig snap in the woods, but if I see photographic proofs of pale fingers gripping the wall of my own living room, my adrenaline is redlining. I am not zooming in on pixels. I am throwing a chair through the nearest window and bolting out into the street. If you know a predator is in the room, isn't your biological imperative to get out of the room?
You say that from the comfort of a well-lit studio, analyzing the situation with your logical prefrontal cortex perfectly intact. But you have to put yourself back into that dark, quiet room at 1:38 a.m.
Fair enough.
Biologically, why do animals freeze? Because movement attracts attention. In the wild, running instantly triggers a predator's instinct to chase. If you do not know exactly where the predator is, how fast it is, or what it is capable of, Staying perfectly still and silent is statistically your brain's best bet for survival.
But the victim knows where the predator is. It's right there behind the drywall.
Do they? They only know where it was when the photo was taken. Which brings us to the spatial reality of the room. Why stare at the phone instead of bolting for the door? Because in the pitch black of that apartment, human night vision is utterly useless. We are diurnal creatures. We rely on light.
That's true.
In this scenario, your smartphone has become your only reliable technological prosthetic for sight. The screen is the only instrument providing data on the threat's location. Furthermore, think about the mechanics of escaping. To unlock that physical door, to turn the heavy deadbolt, to slide the metal chain back along its track, requires you to turn your back to the dark corner where the intruder is hiding. It requires making loud, metallic noises.
You're basically ringing a dinner bell while exposing your back.
Exactly. You are paralyzed by the absolute certainty of the threat's proximity. To move toward the door is to invite an immediate attack from your blind spot. So you use the phone as a terrifying microscope, peering into the digital realm to see the monster hiding just outside your naked eye's field of vision. You cannot look away from the microscope because it is the only thing tethering you to reality.
Wow, okay, that reframes the entire scene for me. The phone isn't just a distraction, it's a lifeline that happens to be delivering poison. And that intense claustrophobia. You aren't just in the same house. You are breathing the exact same stagnant air. The entity is literally just around the corner. And the specific imagery of the pale fingers gripping the drywall, it is so visceral. It implies physical weight, it implies tension. The entity is bracing itself. It has a real physical presence in your space.
Which is why dropping the phone to the floor is such a powerful moment of surrender. Your muscles literally fail under the weight of the terror. But the brilliant escalation of this narrative is that dropping the phone doesn't sever the connection to the predator.
It doesn't save you.
No, it doesn't end the interaction. It merely changes the vantage point as the entity escalates its game.
And this next move is where the story shifts from a creepy home invasion into something deeply unnatural. The phone is on the floor. It clattered loudly on the hardwood, so now you know the entity heard you drop it.
It knows exactly where you are.
Yeah, you are standing in the silence, barely breathing, just waiting for footsteps, waiting for the attack. But instead, the screen on the floor lights up all on its own. The delivery app updates. A banner drops down that reads, "Delivery completed successfully." And a new photo automatically loads on the screen.
And this is where it gets worse.
So much worse. Because this photo isn't from the hallway corner. This photo is taken from a ceiling corner looking straight down at you. You, the victim, are visible in the photo, standing completely still, staring at the front door. The photo was taken in real time. But there was no flash, there was no sound of movement, there was no shutter click.
Nothing.
The entity moved from behind the drywall to an impossible angle near the ceiling, completely silently. And then the phone buzzes one more time. The app banner updates. Customer not responding.
Let's isolate the physical mechanics of what just happened. The entity repositioned from a grounded location behind a wall to an elevated position near the ceiling. It accomplished this without making a single sound. No footsteps on the hardwood, no rustling of clothing, no heavy breathing.
Which, let's be real, shouldn't be physically possible for a human being in a quiet apartment.
It isn't. And that's the point. It highlights a predatory, almost supernatural physical superiority. It is a communication of absolute power. The entity is basically telling you, you cannot fight me, you cannot outrun me, you cannot even hear me. It establishes total, uncontested dominance over the physical space of your home.
This is the moment the psychological terror peaks for me. Because the entity isn't just hiding inside your apartment anymore, it is actively playing with you. It is proving that it can navigate around you, above you, perfectly silently. It's a complete dominance display. It's saying, I am everywhere, and you are entirely powerless.
To contextualize this sociologically, we should really look at the concept of the panopticon.
Wait, the 18th century prison design, with the guard tower in the middle. How does an Uber Eats-style notification fit into a historical architectural theory?
Because the philosophy of the panopticon is all about the weaponization of the gaze. Jeremy Bentham designed the panopticon as a circular prison with a central guard tower. The genius and, well, the cruelty of the design was that the guards in the tower were backlit, so the inmates could never actually see if a guard was watching them at any given moment.
Oh, that's clever.
Because they might be watched at any second, the inmates had to assume they were always being watched. They internalized the paranoia and began policing their own behavior.
So they basically became their own jailers.
Exactly. Now apply that to the living room. The living room has become the cell. The entity has established itself as the invisible guard tower. By sending a photo from the ceiling, the entity proves it can see the victim from absolutely anywhere.
Oh, wow.
The victim is experiencing a hyper-accelerated panopticon. They're being constantly surveyed from impossible shifting angles without knowing exactly where the watcher is located in the physical space. The victim is no longer a person in their own home. They have been reduced to a mere object within the entity's camera frame.
That makes perfect sense. And the app interface acts as, like, the guard tapping on the glass. The language the app uses here is so specifically chilling. I want to talk about UI blindness for a second. We are so conditioned by the user interfaces of our modern apps. Delivery completed successfully. Customer not responding. We see these exact phrases multiple times a week.
Yes, all the time.
They are incredibly mundane, polite, corporate phrases designed to be totally frictionless.
They're designed to convey service and satisfaction.
Right. But here, they are entirely recontextualized. They become sadistic taunts. Customer not responding is no longer an automated message about a missing pizza. It is the monster poking you with a stick. It's the predator hovering above you, observing your freeze response and saying, "Why aren't you running? I'm right here. Look up at me."
It's awful.
The very technology we built to serve us, using its polite automated customer service speak, has been hijacked to deliver psychological torture.
It is the ultimate perversion of our modern convenience culture. We trust the UI, we trust the glowing screen. And the entity uses that implicit trust to deliver pure trauma. But notice the pacing of the narrative here. Just as the psychological tension reaches an absolute breaking point from staring down at this glowing rectangle of doom on the floor, the digital interface suddenly gives way to a visceral, physical reality.
Right. Because right at that second, the electricity to the apartment suddenly cuts out.
Complete darkness.
The entire place is plunged into pitch black, the hum of the refrigerator dies, the ambient light from the street lamp outside is just swallowed up, and in that heavy darkness, the overhead lights in the hallway flicker violently, just for a moment.
The classic flicker.
And for a fraction of a second, the flash of a dying bulb illuminates a tall, heavily obscured silhouette. It is standing entirely motionless near the hallway. And then the darkness returns. The entity operates in silence and remains invisible to the naked eye until it actively chooses to be seen.
The structural shift here is jarring and highly effective. We transitioned abruptly from digital horror screens, notifications, apps to extreme sensory deprivation.
It's a total flip.
The loss of electricity strips away the very last vestige of the modern controlled environment. Your apps, your phone, your electric lights, all the tools of the 21st century have completely failed you. You are instantly plunged back into the dark ages, relying only on your naked, inadequate human senses.
We go from a hyper-modern cyber intrusion right back to the most ancient, primal fear humanity has ever known, a monster standing in the dark hallway when the lights go out. It's a devastating 1-2 punch.
Let's analyze the psychological impact of that specific image, the tall, obscured silhouette. Notice what the narrative does not do. It doesn't describe glowing red eyes, it doesn't describe a gaping maw filled with fangs or some guy holding a bloody knife. It purposefully keeps the threat incredibly vague. It's just a tall, motionless shadow.
Why is that more effective than describing a specific monster? I feel like a guy with a knife is pretty scary.
It is, but it's about how the human brain processes fear in the dark. Evolutionarily, our fear of the dark, nyctophobia, stems from the fact that our historical predators hunted at night. When our vision is obscured, our brain's threat detection software goes into massive overdrive.
Okay, I'm following.
If the narrative gives you a specific monster with fangs, your brain can categorize it. It can say, okay, that's a wolf creature, I need to protect my neck. But an undefined silhouette, that is pure terror, because your mind will inevitably fill in the blank canvas with its own absolute worst personalized nightmares. A defined threat is manageable. An undefined shadow could be literally anything.
It's the fear of the unknown made physically manifest. And the fact that the silhouette is perfectly motionless, it contrasts so sharply with the victim, whose heart is probably beating out of their chest right now. The victim is in full panic mode, but the entity is perfectly calm.
It doesn't need to rush.
Exactly. It is in total control. It doesn't need to lunge at you. It already has you trapped.
What's deeply unsettling here is the entity's mastery over the environment. It orchestrates the entire experience. It chooses when to use the digital app to taunt you with photos. It chooses when to cut the power. And it chooses exactly when to reveal itself physically in the flickering light.
The victim has nothing.
The victim is entirely stripped of agency. They are no longer a participant in this scenario. They are merely reacting to the stimuli the entity decides to provide.
So, you're left in the dark. The silence stretches out. You're slowly backing away, unable to look away from that dark corridor where you saw the silhouette. You're just waiting for the attack. You're bracing for the impact of those pale fingers.
The anticipation is agonizing.
But the attack doesn't come. Instead, the narrative delivers what I can only describe as a masterclass in false relief and impending doom.
This final sequence is where the story elevates itself from a simple, momentary scare into a lingering, permanent trauma.
You are standing in the pitch black, and your phone, still glowing faintly on the floor, buzzes one last time. It's a final app notification. The banner drops down, and it simply says, "Delivery failed."
Just those two words.
And the source material notes that a sudden, massive wave of relief hits the victim. Think about your own brain in that moment. You assume the unseen threat has retreated. You assume it gave up, or the glitch fixed itself, or the power outage scared it away. You are alone in the dark, but you think, just for a second, that you are safe.
A fleeting moment of hope.
But the threat hasn't retreated at all. The screen abandons the delivery app interface entirely. A raw, anonymous text message appears on the screen, and it reads, "We will attempt delivery again tomorrow, time-stamped at exactly 1:38 a.m.
We must deconstruct the cruelty of that false climax. The delivery failed notification is not a mistake. It is a calculated psychological trick by the entity.
It's messing with them.
Yes. It knows the mundane language of the app. It knows that in our modern conditioning, the word failed implies the transaction is over. The process has been terminated. By intentionally giving the victim a fleeting second of hope, the entity ensures that the ultimate psychological blow lands with devastatingly magnified force.
It's like a cat playing with a mouse, letting the mouse think it found the exit to the maze right before dropping the cage door shut again.
Precisely. And then we have to analyze the final metaphor embedded in that raw text message. We will attempt delivery again tomorrow. Throughout this entire ordeal, the victim's brain has been anchoring to the concept of a delivery as a physical object.
A misplaced package or a misrouted food order.
Right. But in this final moment, the realization dawns. There was never a physical package. The delivery was the entity itself. It was delivering its presence into your life.
And then the phone finally dies, the battery gives out, but not before forcing one final image onto the screen. Right before it cuts to black, a new picture appears. It's a picture of your own bedroom.
The absolute worst place.
The lights are off, your bed is empty. But the photograph is taken from a low angle inside the bedroom, pointed directly at the closed bedroom door, just waiting for you to walk in.
That final image is the true horror of the story. It is the crystallization of the trauma.
I really want to dig into that. Why is a picture of an empty bedroom worse than seeing a terrifying silhouette standing in your hallway?
Because of what the bedroom represents psychologically. We talked about the locked front door being the perimeter of the sanctuary. But the bedroom is the inner sanctum. It is the most intimate, vulnerable space a human being possesses.
Because we sleep there.
Exactly. It is where we are entirely unconscious, defenseless, and unaware of our surroundings. By sending a photo taken from inside the bedroom, aimed back at the door, the entity is demonstrating that it has already conquered your inner sanctum. There is literally nowhere left to retreat to. The physical boundaries are gone. The digital boundaries are corrupted.
You can't even lock yourself in your room and hide under the covers because the monster is already under the bed taking pictures of the door.
Precisely. And the unique agony of this ending lies in the suspense it generates. The true horror isn't just what the entity did tonight. It's the agonizing anticipation of what happens at 1:38 a.m. tomorrow. The victim survives the immediate encounter, but they are condemned to live the next 24 hours knowing that the trap is already set inside their most vulnerable space.
The worst part of all this is that the entity didn't just break into an apartment. It fundamentally broke the victim's understanding of reality. It proves that the very technology we built to protect ourselves, our smartphones, our secure apps, our digital gateways, has become the irrefutable evidence of our own vulnerability.
It's a complete inversion.
The phone isn't a tool to call the police for help anymore. It has been inverted into a viewfinder for the monster.
If we look at this through the lens of classic suspense horror structure, we see a brilliant subversion of expectations. A lesser, more generic story would end in violence. It would end with a loud jump scare, a physical attack, and a sudden cut to black.
Like most slasher movies?
Yes, but this narrative refuses to give the audience the release of a physical confrontation. It ends in the horrific, quiet realization that the sanctuary is forever tainted. The sacred boundary between the safe inner world and the dangerous outer world has been permanently erased. The victim's body survives the night, but their psychological sense of safety has been completely assassinated.
Wow. Okay. Let's just take a deep breath and look back at the terrifying journey we just went on. We started in a place of extreme comfort. The relatable, almost arrogant comfort of a locked apartment, trusting a piece of heavy metal to keep the chaos of the world at bay.
A false sense of security.
Then we moved through the agonizing realization of a breached perimeter, delivered through something as completely harmless as a late-night push notification. We felt the biological freeze response as the victim hunted for pixels, discovering a predator sharing their dark room.
We analyzed how the entity asserted total psychological dominance.
Right, utilizing the concept of the panopticon to watch from above and weaponizing polite corporate UI language into sadistic taunts. We experienced the sensory deprivation of the blackout, the primal fear of the undefined silhouette, and finally we endured the cruelty of false relief, ending with the total, permanent loss of the home as a safe space. The bedroom is already occupied, the delivery is scheduled for tomorrow.
It is a profound, deeply unsettling exploration of how easily our modern comforts and digital dependencies can be inverted into instruments of psychological terror. And to you, the listener, I want you to consider your own environment tonight.
Oh, this is going to be good.
The next time you come home, close your front door and hear that heavy deadbolt click into place. Or the next time your phone screen lights up with a mundane, everyday notification in the middle of the quiet night. Remember this narrative. Remember how fragile your sanctuary really is, and how quickly the barrier between your safe haven and absolute terror can be dissolved by a few simple pixels on a glowing screen.
It fundamentally changes how you look at the device sitting in your pocket right now. Which brings us back to the paradox we started with. We rely so heavily on the physical engineering of our wooden doors and the digital certainty of our networks. But if our physical locks can be bypassed without leaving a single scratch, and our digital tools only serve as high-resolution cameras to document our own helplessness when you sit in your dark living room tonight, scrolling through your phone, listening to the silence of your house, are you truly alone? Or are you just waiting for your own delivery notification?